administration, the many members of the Congress, and the many individuals elsewhere in foreign policy circles, many of whom are in this room, who have spent time working in South Sudan, on South Sudan, and with the South Sudanese over the years, have been incredibly mobilized since the crisis unfolded, deeply concerned by the devastating nature of the conflict and the speed with which it unfolded, and they feel extremely committed to the people of South Sudan. My boss, the U.S. Special Envoy, the White House, the State Department, USAID, our embassy, partners on the Hill, have been deeply involved in supporting the IGAD mediation efforts to end this crisis, the humanitarian response, the efforts to stand up a monitoring and verification mechanism, efforts to support the many IDPs displaced as a result of this crisis, as well as the UN's critical efforts to protect civilians. And the time and efforts and resources of this administration, I can tell you, will continue to be mobilized, will continue to assist the people of South Sudan on the way out of this crisis. And above all, I think, as the Minister mentioned, the need to talk solutions. I know the Special Envoy and the administration are particularly ready to stand firmly behind those who want to talk solutions, who want to chart a peaceful way forward, and who want to help the people of South Sudan realize their hard-fought, the benefits and fruits of their hard-fought independence. With that, I'll be very brief. I know there'll be plenty of time in question and answer, but I'll just outline what we see as the key elements of the way forward in basic terms, and what we continue to press all parties to the conflict, both here in Addis, at the talks, and in Juba. First is number one is to implement what's already been agreed. And in this regard, I mean in particular the cessation of hostilities agreement signed in January. Since it's been signed, it's been disregarded by both sides. There's been open discussion and announcement of offensives. There's been squandering of too many lives and resources on military efforts that we really don't see as a means out of this crisis. We've consistently said we don't think there is a military solution to this crisis, and parties must come to talk. And part of this, in particular, is cooperation with deployment of the monitoring and verification mechanism. The administration, since before talks began, have been helping to set up, to design, to support IGAD in funding a monitoring mechanism. We're very eager to see that deployed. There have been problems in terms of the deployment to date, some restrictions, some discussions of access. We need cooperation from the government and from anti-government forces and from others in terms of deploying those teams, as well as ultimately in agreeing to and deploying a regional force, as mentioned, to help both protect the monitoring teams to do their job and also to act as a deterrent against continued hostilities. Number two is the humanitarian situation, which we all know is quite grave at the moment. We've pressed both parties consistently to allow complete access in all areas of South Sudan held by pro or anti-government forces, and help facilitate this as a partner. The people of South Sudan had little say and little interest in this crisis, and yet, as Richard mentioned, they are the victims. So we need facilitation from both sides to the conflict to be partners in delivering on humanitarian needs. The rainy season is now here in South Sudan, and the risk of famine is increasing. We've seen increasing discussion of this. Many of you may have seen the New York Times recently did an editorial on this. It was really a serious need for additional money and support to help prevent a real catastrophe in South Sudan. In this regard, in terms of humanitarian assistance and delivery, continued delays, checkpoints, harassment of humanitarian operation, when coupled with the lack of urgency about the growing need, is really quite concerning to all of us. And a big element of this, and we can talk about this more later, is cooperation with UNMISS. The UN has a long history in South Sudan, and it's really been embattled in the middle of this crisis. And they are the representatives of the international community, and they need to be respected by all parties, not least in their attempts to try and meet the needs, protection needs and assistance needs of the really incredible numbers of people who have been displaced. Number three is accountability. We have and continue to encourage all parties to the conflict to fully cooperate with the African Union Commission of Inquiry and their investigations into human rights abuses and potential atrocities. We've offered our support to the AU in this regard, And we also welcome a strong role for national mechanisms. So the 3 reconciliation bodies that exist in South Sudan, I think, can have a real role if they're empowered, if they're given the space to operate, if they're given the support necessary, can play a role both in terms of accountability and reconciliation going forward. And fourth, and really above all, is the political process. And we've pressed all sides, again, that they must get serious about an inclusive political dialogue toward resolution of this crisis, which, as we know, started, has political roots. Absolutely necessary for that dialogue if we're to achieve a sustainable peace, viable governance arrangements, and institutional strengthening going forward. And those who have undermined the IGAD process to date have tried to narrow the process, exclude others. Those are among the individuals that may be eligible for sanctions, as many of you have seen the executive order released by the White House earlier this week, which is targeted both to try and send a signal to those who are committing continued abuses, but also those who aren't interested in the peace process and who would rather deter it at this stage. And in terms of the political process, let me mention just 4 brief points. One, the administration does not have any prescriptions. Our view is only that a dialogue and its outcome are credible, that it's inclusive, and that it's capable of transitioning this country out of the disaster and towards a sort of South Sudan 2.0. What we do not support and what we've continued to press the parties on is a need for inclusivity. What we do not support is a stitch-up among political elites. We continue to work hard with those who are trying to ensure broader civil society participation of other political parties, of churches, of those outside of the elite circles of where this crisis started. We think that's absolutely critical for anything to be sustainable going forward, and so South Sudan doesn't revert to crisis again. It's got to be a broader base to this agreement and confidence in the way forward. 2, as mentioned, we think the parties must take this process seriously, must sit down together under IGAD auspices and must determine the way forward, must review and consider governance and institutional arrangements to decide what is viable, what's sustainable, what will engender reconciliation, what will enjoy the broad confidence of South Sudanese, and what can help pave the way toward a new constitution, new elections, and a new beginning. 3, there's clearly been an attempt by some to paint a picture of business as usual. I think that's something of an affront to the people of South Sudan who have been affected by this process and by this conflict. As Special Envoy Booth said a few weeks ago, business as usual is not a viable way forward. A way forward starts with acknowledgement of the reality of what's happened and the deep institutional and societal fractures that have been laid bare by this conflict. And 4th, just on the negotiations, the Special Envoy, myself, several other members of our team and of the U.S. government have been consistently out in Addis Ababa between the negotiations and Juba, trying to support the IGAD mediation. Let me say we're incredibly grateful for IGAD leadership on this. They came, they answered the phone right away in this crisis. They've stepped up, and we're really fortunate to have a mediation team that is quite senior, quite respected, and quite well known to the South Sudanese people. There's been very important progress to date there. As I mentioned, some of the need to implement what's been agreed so far. But at the same time, there's a degree to which the process is stuck in tactics, in process. And I think in order in the long run to bear fruit, there really need to be some bold moves in Juba to unlock this situation. Some moves that restore the confidence of a broad cross-section of South Sudanese, a demonstration of political will to begin what I think many of the friends of South Sudan here in the region and more broadly see as necessary. I really think that's necessary if we're going to take support the talks going forward to reach a viable solution. There's obviously a host of other issues that the Minister and others the Minister and Richard mentioned, and happy to talk about those more in question and answer. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Zach. John, over to you for some comments.
Thank you.
Thanks once again for having the chance to go straight to the question. Messages of the peaceful settlement is a reality because before even the IGAD initiative came up, and that's why I mentioned earlier it was after 3 days immediately, and President Kiir mentioned that he needs peaceful settlement to the crisis. That one is there, and I mentioned also why we view the talks of Addis to be very critical here is the sense of urgency, because when we signed the cessation of hostilities agreement and it is not respected, we are very much concerned, because the government will not benefit from the crisis in the country. Instead, we need the situation to be normal as soon as possible. So coming here for the monitors to verify the situation and to stop the fight, it is for the interest of our people first. Those who are trapped somewhere and who confine themselves in other certain areas, when there is cessation of hostilities is fully respected, it gives that confidence back, and people will be normal, returning to their places. And even the rainy season has started, they can also cultivate. But when people are still fighting, it doesn't give confidence to the people who are now in UN camps. They feel there is threat. Though there are people who are out there from other ethnic groups who are walking freely, but those who feared what happened, it is for our interest to see that we are respecting cessation of hostilities in the first place before we even move further. This is why we have the view of us looking into this one critically, because language that we are viewing things is a good thing, and at the same time, we don't want that situation to continue in fighting. It will not even give the humanitarian access to the other needed areas. About the 4, as you call them, detainees, first, the terms here are problems. In the past, before even this crisis, you go to our prisons, we never have somebody called political detainee, because they view out their thoughts in open manner, and we don't arrest people. These ones were suspects of the coup. And with the investigation, which is another pillar of the government doing it, 7 were seen without sufficient evidence. Their role went somewhere to instigate the public to go on the streets. And as a matter of fact, we didn't hold on them. We cooperated, and the government also cooperated a lot to give them to a neighboring country, Kenya. It is also for their security and safety. That's why we did it. Because it's staying in the country and the hatred that came so far, that there are those plotters whom citizens may think that have contributed. Their safety could be very critical for us as government of how we can release them to their houses, and then they feel safe. And the government made that initiative. And I think most of you are aware we are not controlling them. Coming to the 4, instead of using the term again detainee and the suspects, they are accused. And if they are accused, we have the courts, and that's where they can be seen innocent or proven guilty. And that one, we don't own it. It is in judiciary, which I believe we have to respect the due course of law to take its place. And you talk already of impunity. Impunity starts with the people that are also seen. If they have contributed, it has to be seen. If they are not, like other 7 detainees, whom you call detainees, we release them. So 4 are accused, and they are on trial. And bringing compromise here as a government will come later on when these 4 accused are proven guilty. This is where the role of constitution comes in here to the president to say, I have pardoned. And I think in the history of what President Kiir has done, he has pardoned many people. Those who pick up arms, even David Yao Yao, we reach now a settlement. And it's one thing that I have to also show the audience here, that we have to reach cessation of hostilities with David Yao Yao, who was really a big problem in our country. And general amnesties were granted, even prior to reaching the agreements. Those who also pick up arms like George Athor were also given pardons. That's where the role of the president will come in later on, to pardon the 4 if they are found guilty.